Do you think it might stand with my honour to marry my sister's subject?
It is true that an earl is not a prince. Surely there can be no greater honour than to match yourself with a nobleman, by whom you inherit such a kingdom as England.
I have such inheritance by blood, regardless of who I marry or do not marry. We must discuss succession before marriage, not the other way around. We hope we do not vex the Earl.
Not in the least, madam. I appreciate your honesty.
We see why our cousin is so fond of the Earl. I shall respect Elizabeth's crown as soon as she names me its successor.
Madam, my
If
queen
she has
will
any
not...
concerns about this proposal, she may express them to me directly.
And that's a clip from Mary, Queen of Scots. I'm delighted to say that we've been joined by Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi.
So, Margot, you were last on for I, Tonya. Saoirse, you were last on for Chesil Beach, which seems like a long time ago.
Yeah.
So tell us about this film, because there's so much to discuss, but just explain the story that you're telling in this movie.
So the film starts with Mary Stuart, aka Mary Queen of Scots, returning from France to Scotland. She's been away for about 12, 13 years. She left when she was 5. And while she's been away, the country and the nation of what will later become known as the UK has gone through a massive change, politically in a sense when it comes to the lords that are in power, but also religiously the Reformation takes place, and Scotland has gone from being a Catholic country and a Catholic-led country to Protestant. And Mary is a Catholic queen, and so is immediately sort of met with defensiveness from the other lords in her court. And she also has a very strong claim to the English throne. So she's a threat to Elizabeth. So she's this very young, full of life girl who sort of has a lot to offer and also a lot to lose. So.
Meanwhile, south of the border.
Meanwhile, Elizabeth's been on the throne for a couple of years now. Because her dad had her mum killed and had the marriage annulled and void, in some people's mind she doesn't have a rightful claim to the throne because she's technically, that would make her illegitimate. So Mary returning as a Stuart has a rightful claim that no one can dispute. So that's obviously a threat. However, as Saoirse said, she's Catholic and Elizabeth is Protestant, and there are powers that be in Scotland who are also Protestant and also in cahoots with Cecil, Elizabeth's right-hand man, played by Guy Pearce. But they rule in two very different ways, and it's interesting, this relationship, because they're cousins, and Mary and Elizabeth are first cousins, and throughout the film you see us kind of converse through letters, which are very intimate, and you can tell that they are really reaching out to each other and they do want to find a compromise, but each of their separate courts hold them apart and their advisors. On one hand, the mere existence and return of Mary threatens Elizabeth's life and survival and place on the throne, and on the other hand, she's the only person in the world who can understand what Elizabeth's going through. So, I think she's full of conflict in how much she yearns and obsesses about Mary.
Do your queenly characters change much over the course of the movie? So if we span about 25 years, when we see you in the early scenes, is that the character pretty much set, or do your characters change over the course of the movie?
I feel Elizabeth changes a little bit in that she already is ruling with a lot of caution and heeding a lot of advice from her advisors, but there was still life and hope there. And I think towards the end of the movie, along the way, you see that she has severed those ties and she's ultimately sacrificed her womanhood and her humanity to exist merely as the throne and kind of be invincible in that way, but also incredibly lonely.
For Mary, I think she never loses that fight and that fire that she's got in her belly. That's something that like the Stuarts were known for, and it's something that she carried on for the rest of her life. But when she arrives back in Scotland, she is a kid. She's a 19-year-old girl who she wants to bring peace to the land, absolutely, and she wants to work with the people that are there, including her brother, the Earl of Murray. But she's still very young. And so I think we watch her come into her own as a woman. She becomes a wife, she becomes a mother, and she holds those positions very dear. But we also watch her come into her own as a ruler, and she learns from her mistakes and becomes more politically astute as the film goes on. But I think that sense of humanity that she has and real sort of passion for whatever she believes in and the people she believes in, that carries through the whole film. So
Were these roles that you wanted to play? Did you need much persuading, Saoirse?
No, not at all. I signed up to it when I was 18 and it's working title. So I had worked with Tim Bevan and Eric Fellner on a couple of things when I was younger, and they've always been very good at sort of bringing projects to me over the years. And I remember when, you know, I started when I was about 10 doing films, and older actresses, even if they were just a few years older, would say to me, like, it's great now and you're very lucky now, but watch it when you get to like 17, 18, because the roles will just stop coming in. And that is kind of what happened in terms of like these really great, well-rounded, well-written roles just weren't around. And I was sort of starving for that. And then Tim and Eric brought me this project that was in development, and it was more of a concept at the time, which was also really exciting. And it was giving me the opportunity to play a Celtic queen and someone who was going to go through this massive journey. And, you know, at any age that's exciting, but especially when you know you're at a point where like directors and producers and writers just aren't making the kind of films that fit your age, you know.
Margot, did you need persuading? Something
I did.
that you'd aspired to play?
No, I hadn't, and I definitely needed persuading. I was, to be honest, very scared and intimidated by the fact that some of the world's greatest actresses had already played Elizabeth. But what was helpful in this case is that it's not an Elizabeth movie, it's a Mary Stuart movie, Mary Queen of Scots. So the pressure is off a little bit in that regard, but I still felt like there were big shoes to fill. And more than that, I didn't think that I could play a queen. I didn't think I necessarily knew enough to play a queen. I think that sounds weird, but I didn't go to university and I didn't do theatre and I haven't studied Shakespeare and I didn't know this time period. And that's true for a lot of characters I play. I don't understand a lot about what I need to do, and that's why you go off and you do a lot of research, and that's always very fun and exciting. But I didn't think I really had it within me to play someone so different to me. She's so cautious, she's so restrained, and I'm not really like that. And I wasn't sure if I'd be able to find a common ground between.
So what was there a moment, was there a piece in the script, was there a piece of common ground that you did find that you think, okay, I'm in?
Yeah, it was finding empathy, really. It was starting to understand her childhood and finding that she'd been through a lot. I thought she'd had quite a cushioned life up until the point where she's on the throne, but it was quite the opposite. And once I started learning that kind of stuff, the rebranding as the Virgin Queen, all those things suddenly made sense to me, and I actually felt really sorry for her and started seeing her more as a human than as a queen.
Saoirse, did you know this period? When I saw the movie, I came out and just checked who was related to who and who was cousin of what, in the same, actually with the favourite, with Olivia Colman in playing Queen Anne, trying to remember who was descended from who and where they came from. Did you know this stuff, or did you have to check it out?
I mean, I did have to check it out. Like, I did grow up in primary school, especially learning about that history. So we learned quite a bit about the Tudors. But when you delve into it, you kind of realise like how much of a soap opera it all was. It was so, politics and religion were intertwined, and it was just a very exciting time to read about. So I knew who everyone was, but like you, I was sort of like, wait, who's the cousin of who and who has the rightful claim, and you know, all that sort of stuff.
So you play, this is Olivia Colman playing Queen Anne is playing the great-granddaughter of you, Saoirse, and you are playing the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-granddaughter of Chris Pine.
Yeah.
Who's Robert the Bruce.
Yeah.
There you go. There's a soap opera for
Olivia and I are so thankful to Chris for all he did for us. He fought hard for us to reign. Yeah, it's mad. It's the Stuarts were connected to so many people, and Bonnie Prince Charlie as well, and all that sort of lot. So it was really exciting learning about all these characters connected to them.
So when we go and see the movie, we see your stories unfold, and I think it's fair to talk about it because you've both been asked about it before. You basically have one scene together, which I think was your last day of filming, Margot, and your first day, Saoirse. What can you tell us about that final scene, which I think was the first time you'd actually seen each other in costume?
Yeah, it was amazing. It was like the one moment that I've ever had on a film set where your own personal emotions are sort of just as much a part of the scene as the characters are. Like, it felt so sort of on the surface, and the buzz of, your close-ups being shot simultaneously while you, as Saoirse or Margot, saw each other for the first time in the flesh, knowing that reaction and whatever emotions came out of that could be used to benefit the film. Although I don't know if they used that first take, because we were like, oh my God, it was very blubbery. But it was a wonderful...
You cried when you saw Margot?
Yeah, I mean, we both just broke down and shook. We were shaking because there was this mad adrenaline of like, oh my God, you know, Margot's finishing this job where she had to get up at 3 a.m. in the morning, and she's been working her arse off for the last few weeks, and now I'm about to go into it, and I had waited so long to do it, and we had these cameras on us while it was happening, essentially live, and I had never had that experience before, and that was incredible.
I was blubbering. I was a mess. I had not intended to play the scene with tears at all. In fact, it's really at a point where I'd hoped my version of Elizabeth had distanced herself from her feelings and her emotions in a way, but it obviously was very deep there. And like Saoirse said, it just came to the surface, and it was a wild, wild moment. And to see her as Mary was just, it blew me away. She just looked and felt the way I'd always imagined. I'd imagined Mary to be this, you know, all the things I think Elizabeth was envious of. You know, she's fierce, she rides into battle, she's a mum, she's young and intelligent and brave and beautiful and all these things that I think Elizabeth's like, oh, I'm none of those things. I feel so inadequate. Also, she's rightfully should be on the throne here. Maybe I shouldn't rightfully be on the throne. You know, all those things that she's insecure about. And then to see this Mary standing in front of me, who I could see where her armor had kind of rusted into her dress, and I could see where the ocean water had faded the bottom of it, and I could see her hair tangled and stuff. And, you know, she's been through battle. She's been betrayed by everyone around her. She's just been through hell, and she's standing in front of me asking me to help her. And I know where the conversation is heading, and I know I'm going to say no. And that broke my heart. The second I saw her, I just crumbled.
Is it the contention of the film that if it hadn't been for your respective courts, for which you could also say if it hadn't been for the men, that the two queens would have worked something out or would have had some kind of working relationship?
You'd like to think so, yeah.
I mean, you don't have to extend it to all the men. You could have just gotten rid of Cecil. And truly, I think...
And also
John
Ian
Knox.
Hart's character. Well, John Knox was just... I mean, nobody liked John Knox.
Played by David Tennant.
Played by David Tennant, who everyone loves.
Yeah.
By the way. But yeah, Ian Hart's character as well. I mean, there was a few of them that were just all so self-serving. And I think these women getting in the room together were a threat to any power that they had themselves, because especially up in Scotland, it was all about the land. This is my bit of land. They gave it to me. Nobody's taken that from me. And the two of them coming together and working together would be a threat to that, you know.
Saoirse, what do we see you in next after this?
Little Women next.
Margot, what's next for you?
Either an indie film I did after this film called Dreamland, or the Tarantino film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Saoirse Ronan, Margot Robbie, always a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.